Thank you so much. Okay. Am I visible? Thank you. So within project proposal writing, we are starting off tonight and we will continue tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. There are some key issues that I need you to understand tonight as I'm laying the foundation, where project proposal writing fits in and the issues around that. But before that, I'm going to talk through resource mobilization tonight so that you can understand the place of project proposal writing. So during this session between tonight and Sunday, you need to understand project proposal writing process in the developmental context, explain the importance of project proposal writing, describe your own responsibility and support mechanisms available in the proposal writing process, proposal writing structure and concept notes, and what happens if you fail to solicit funds, and apply relevant donor reporting requirements and list the support mechanisms available. So some of these I will ask you, but I will need your ears for the next few minutes. What is a proposal? You know, when you think of a proposal and you are a man and you've ever proposed a lady, then you need to understand that a proposal is a tool, it's an aid. We used to acquire something, to acquire funds or to acquire something that benefits, and a contract and a plan of action. In this context, acquire funds, a contract, and a plan of action. These are three things that we need to understand. It's a persuasive tool. It convinces people with funds who don't know you that you are worth funding, and for those who know you to continue flow of funding. And it's a contract. The proposal often becomes part of a contract. So we need to be careful what we promise. In contract, in covenant, we need to be careful what we promise. So why we say it becomes part of a contract, because at the end of the day, if the proposal is successful, it's signed off in agreement. It's a plan of action. It spells out what you are going to do, how you are going to do it, where you are going to do it, and when you are going to do it. So that is what it spells out. It's your plan of action, your proposal. Now, the funding in the NGO sector, this is just an outline that I always use just to give an idea of what is happening in the NGO sector. The nature and scope of funding differ both in terms of geographical setup and in terms of need. So there's government funding, ministerial grants and subsidies. Every country has got pockets of funding within the government sector and in the state-owned enterprises. We call it parastatals or SOEs, state-owned enterprises. So there are pockets of money that is being allocated for corporate social investment or corporate social responsibility, whereby they are tasked or assigned to identify what communities need. Do they need a kindergarten? And do they need a new clinic? Do they, whatever the community need? And you'll find that these corporate social investment funds are usually, in my country, I'm giving an example, education. They like to fund ECD, early childhood development. They fund health care projects. They would fund nutrition projects. They would fund gardening projects. And just to mention a few, and then the in things youth development, everything youth development, IT, ICT, everything with pertaining to the fourth industrial revolution, they would fund around that. Then you have bilateral and multilateral institutions. These are donor institutions, and we'll talk about that shortly. Foundations, corporate partnerships, and private individual donors. Now, sometimes foundations can be established by private philanthropists as well. So yeah, there's an overlap, but just for us to have an understanding where you can get funding from. Bilateral institutions currently providing donor aid through country offices include, these are all the development agencies. So whatever country has an embassy within your country, they've got a development component. NORAD for the Norwegians, DFID, USAID, GIZ, DANIDA, Irish Aid. So if you look at them, they are development aids that work through embassies within a particular country. And then the multilateral funding agencies comprise of the following: UN agencies, EU, Africa Development Bank, World Bank, and all the banks. I think you know that. But in our country, EU funds predominantly community development, and then there are the major economic development that they are funding. The same applies to GIZ. Most of our other funding comes from GIZ because of the colonial history of Namibia. We were colonized by Germany. So as a result of that, why I'm saying that is you'll find in your country, it should be USAID USAID that provides most of the funding because of the history that they have with the country. In our country, it is Germany. So Germany was our colonizer in the past. And if you come to the country, you look at the history, you'll even see that we've got Germany as one of our languages, one of our national languages as well, German, in schools. Our children are doing German in schools apart from the mother tongue and so on. So they fund us. And then there are other agencies like the Africa Development Bank, World Bank. The common funding thematic areas, okay, these are just examples, but it's way, way, way beyond this. Children's rights, gender-based violence, HIV, AIDS, poverty, health, education, mental health and psychosocial support, advocacy, governance, and you name it. Perhaps your NGO that you are working for is not here, but what we are saying in this component is everything pertaining to development. And then in mapping with our programs, the main themes would be relevant for us. Okay, we do our mapping and we see what is relevant for us, and we'll talk about mapping later. Most UN agencies will both implement activities themselves and work as a donor. UN agencies operate like a mini government within a government or under a government, under the country where they are. So you will find that they implement activities themselves, and they've got staff that they employ to execute these activities, but they are also a donor agency. So they've got both functions, and that makes a donor agency actually very, very, very strong. And many NGOs work with funding from private companies as well and foundations. These usually require grant agreements. Now, there are grant agreements is a category within funding as well. I think we're all familiar with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Yeah, and then organizations also receive funding from public sector, either people who have a bond with a specific organization and have supported them all their life, or people who read an article, a newspaper. Okay, this is just telling us how you are identified. And sometimes in my country, people love, we are a small country, people would put in, if their house burnt and it was on the news, they would put in help and the donors will fund them. So if you have a heart for development, you'll always be ready to participate. Like during COVID-19, many people, the public, the local communities, the local businesses that don't usually fund individuals, they all joined the donor, let me say agencies or the donor agents, to focus the attention on a specific crisis. Charity should launch an emergency appeal. It's just like a, what do we call it, courses, a course. Example is natural disasters. In our country, we've got floods certain time of the year, but I can't say floods as such. It's just that the levels of the rivers are very high in the northern regions and people have to move away. It's not that damaging, it's just the areas around the rivers. And then we also have drought in certain areas. So these are funded areas. All funds raised through such campaigns will go directly to the specific emergencies. That is direct funding. So then there are other charities that they are indicating here. Save the Children, UK, Oxfam, Great Britain, Islamic Relief. These are just examples. Worldwide, they receive about 45% of their income through corporate donations or corporate partners. We also learned about some of the big entities that are funding SOS Children's Villages, like the Netflixes of this world and all these big entities. They're also funding orphanages, child protection, child care, and so on. Other organizations such as Médecins Sans Frontières, which stands for, what they call Doctors Without Borders, I think this is just a French name, work mainly with individuals donating small amounts. The organization that I worked for, they also do that. Trading, and then also some organizations gain funding through trading activities. This could be through selling cards, stickers, charity shop, and so on. So there is a specific training that is currently given, whereby if you want to obtain funding from traders, these are the traders, people that are trading on. Netflix is one example. I don't know if you have Netflix in your country, but it's one example that I can think of off my head. So that is just an idea of who are the donors we are referring to. But if you do your research, you will discover that there are way more than what I have here. And that is resource mobilization and donor relations is a course on its own. So here today, I'm just giving you a little bit of it. Now, the difference between fundraising and fund development and communication. Here I have FDC, which stands for Fund Development and Communication. And here I have FR, which stands for fundraising. Now, the era in which we are, we can no longer just settle for fundraising. It is not enough. And that is why I'm giving you the difference, why we need to go on fund development and communication. It's now a career, it's a position that you can take on, apply for, study for, and so on. Fund development and communication, or fund development in itself, is a long-term organizational investment. The word development tells you that it's long-term and it is ongoing. And with fundraising can be short-term relief. And then sensible investments under fund development, sensible investment planning are integrated into programs and organizations. So the sensible investment planning, in other words, the area within which you need the donor fund or the funding, they are integrated into the programs or into the organization. One of the examples I gave the other day was when I was on a child labor project and the project came to an end. We proposed to the government, which was the Ministry of Labor, to absorb child labor programming into the ministry, into the government, and they then appointed an individual, and that has evolved into a department. So this is the advantage of long-term development. Long-term development must always tell what happens after the fund has ended. And then in fundraising, it can meet immediate needs. So fundraising, you can fundraise for anything, and it meets immediate needs. And then again, in fund development and communication, it can be guided by organizational leadership. In some of the organizations, we call it fundraising leadership. And it's a position in itself in bigger organizations. While fundraising can just be committees, and it can be lower ranking personnel as well. So it gives you the difference. Organizational leadership, as a director, I was responsible, or I am responsible for making sure that donors are attracted to the organization. And I am the first person to do the ask or to introduce the organization. And then I release the subordinates in the FDC department to continue working with them. And that just ensures support. And then again, with fund development marketing plan that identifies appropriate market segments, We have marketing plans, but we also have resource mobilization plans and strategies. In fact, it should be strategy on this side. We're working on strategies. And then in fundraising, there are distinct market segments. And then again, with fund development, we have networks and collaboration. It's much bigger. It's much bigger. It's long-term. In fundraising, it can be once-off and it can be current events. So for you to be able to implement this in an organization, it requires a resource mobilization plan, a fully fledged plan where both components are featuring, and within the plan, in the strategy, out of the strategy, you have a plan, and the plan is a costed plan. And these are within the strategy, it tells you now the kind of funding you will apply for, the quality of proposals you will be writing. So I'm going to talk to you about resource mobilization, because in this day and age, resource mobilization is what will take, or continuous resource mobilization is what will take your organization to a next level, as opposed to the fund that we spoke of all the years. Now, what is resource mobilization? First of all, you will see people speak of business development. It's the same as resource mobilization. Nowadays, you will find that they, like in my country, you will see that they advertise for a business development officer, business development director. There are business development units. So if you have some skill in fundraising or fund development, this is your area. Do not be shocked by the word business development. It's the very same principle or the very same position termed differently. It includes all activities engaged in to secure new and additional resources for the organization. Remember, I said resources, that is beyond funding. And resource mobilization also involves making better use of and maximizing existing resources of the organization. Very important. It's got a long-term vision, or the long-term vision of resource mobilization or for the business development unit is to diversify resources and ensure financial sustainability to support the growth and development of the organization's programs. What am I saying? Doesn't matter how small your NGO is or your unit that you are working in or how vast, you need to have an understanding of resource mobilization. The importance of long-term resource mobilization to expand deep and strong relations with the strategic stakeholders. So there must be strong relations with the strategic stakeholders. So strong and then strategic, not just any, not everybody. Strategic stakeholders that can take you to a next level, that can work with you, and that can be innovative with you, and also the community in itself. And to amplify and create strategic visibility for the organization and expand relations. So what we are saying is, it positions the organization, it announces the organization, it creates strategic visibility. Strategic visibility is the nature of the visibility, speaks of it brings out your uniqueness, it brings out your brand, instead of just you being brought out by like any other organization. Once you come out, strategic visibility, once you come out, you are known for what you do differently. And that is the key with being strategic in your visibility. And to create organizational sustainability through program and financial sustainability. So that is also another importance of long-term resource mobilization. I always tell people you must always have a sustainability plan for your organization. You must have a sustainability strategy for your organization. And these plans are developed in the beginning when you are planning your project. And also to fulfill responsibilities towards the community. Remember, we said earlier, there are contracts involved that you sign. Be careful what you promise. You also make a promise to a community, because you go out there and you tell them, we are coming up with a project that makes, whereby we will supply water, taps, or whatever. But there's an expectation that you have raised. So resource mobilization fulfill responsibilities towards the community. to run programs based on the genuine community needs and to advocate for such community-led programs. So your programs that you are coming up with serves in the interest and the need of the community. And you can advocate for such programs as well in a long-term strategy. And a good and strong resource base will allow innovation and creativity through systematic research and therefore result in improvement of program and service delivery. Remember in the beginning, when we did project management, I spoke of the importance of feasibility studies, importance of baseline, importance of your end lines, and so on. So it's very important. You can have research programs as well integrated in such long-term resource mobilization. Strategies to effective resource mobilization, very important. And I want you to still think of how you are going to do your proposal. We're actually talking about how you are going to look at what you are applying for. In organization, an organization's performance today, where your organization is today, will impact the ability to generate resources for the future. So maintaining organizational credibility and reputation is very, very critical. Remember, you are the face of your organization. Many organizations has brand managers and brand agents. Many NGOs has got persons responsible for branding, but everyone that bears the name of as an employee of an organization carries the brand of the organization. What we are talking about with credibility, you must have a good record with the public. You don't wear your organization's t-shirt and then people see you in a shebeen or in a club, you are drunk, you are fighting. And you are not known for, being a rascal in public, and yet you are a key person in that organization's project. Sharing evidence-based results with strategic stakeholders will be very important to support the business development unit resource mobilization efforts. Then developing proposals based on the actual community need. This will require to have handy rapid assessment. So you also need to do rapid assessment and you need the information about the target audience. That is another strategy of effective resource mobilization. Then also one-on-one meetings with stakeholders to share with them the work carried out by your organization and how such work can benefit the fulfillment of the donor country strategy. Now, I always tell individuals, and I want to encourage you, there must be a standard proposal, a standard presentation, your elevator pitch that we spoke of last time. Apart from you being able to articulate it in a few minutes, there should be a standard presentation. If somebody says, send us something, there should be a standard document, a scope of work. If somebody says, send us something, we are interested in what you are saying. Now, that scope of work is what you are able to articulate in a short presentation, but also that which they can use without stealing or sabotaging your niche. Very important. There should be that. Again, strategies, creating more visibility of your organization by all staff members wherever you go for meetings. And it may require to take some more easy to carry materials. You must have a pamphlet or something. I think you all know that. You should have something that you take along, that you leave with individuals. Like I said, the presentation should be something that you can leave. It should be done in such a way that nobody can do nothing, nobody can sabotage your work and so on. If they copy, let them copy the good of it, but not something that will stop the existence of the organization. Creating synergies with strategic partners, very important. Strategic partners, like-minded partners, or partners that you can complement each other. Sometimes you are all having the same type of program. Maybe ICT, like somebody said, e-commerce, but maybe they have an angle that your organization does not have, and your organization maybe have an angle that they don't have, so you complement each other there while you are in the same industry. So those are strategic partners, and you implement together, or you bid for business. Bid means the tender that you put in, and then you apply as a consortium. Important to understand, donors today easier fund consortiums than individual programs or individual projects. So the more healthy consortium partnerships you have, the greater your chances to get funded. As I'm sitting here, as I'm talking, I think, maybe you already have partners and maybe you're already in a consortium, but if not, you should think always of a possible partner within an application. Sometimes you don't want to start up with a partner, so you will look at other angles of which we will talk about later. Effective planning will be very critical, and we should have a database for ready proposals. So what we are saying is have a culture of writing proposals. There are the 2 pages proposals. One of you submitted a proposal. I think it's on a law project or a legal assistance to the community. Always have proposals ready so that when opportunity arises, you just do some small adjustments or adaptations on the document and then you submit it. Okay, so you must have, and then also have a database ready of the proposals, but also have a database, do a community mapping as to which organization focus on what, who funds them, a donor database, have your own map internally. Who funds them? What are they funding? This is not even before you start with your proposal writing, especially those who receive concepts and proposals all year round. There are those with closing dates. As I'm sitting here, I can tell you who close in March every year, who close in April every year, who close in July, September, October. That is how much information. But you must also know those who take on proposals throughout the year. Very, very important. I'm laying the foundation for you to begin to write your proposals. This is what we are doing here. And then how the resource mobilization or the business development unit will work with the organization or within the organization. Now, I've given an option there, PM, which is project manager. Sometimes you don't have this person, resource mobilization individual. Sometimes you don't have a business development unit, but the project manager will always be there. And whoever takes on the role of the project manager, how will they work to prepare an organization for proper resource mobilization? Capacity building for different stakeholders is key. And this will be in the area of business development, partner engagement, including donors, visibility profiling. That is the profiling that I was talking about. It can include partners as well. And how to effectively make use of printed materials around your project. For example, mental health. I've just given an example. So if it's mental health, because I worked with mental health, your material will be around mental health. And nowadays we know when we say IEC materials, it is no longer just pamphlet and posters. It's your social media as well. It's your videos, it's your clips, everything. All staff must be ready and willing to sell the work of the organization at all times. Profiling in-country donor priorities based on donor country strategies as well as your program's priority areas. So I spoke about the profiling earlier. So you will do your mapping. This can be a little exercise that you are doing. And everyone in the organization can be engaged into that. And when you profile your organizations, your donor organizations, you will not only see USAID sponsor youth development at organization X, but you will also look at who funds what they are funding, and you will also compare it with what you are looking at or new areas of funding as well, okay? And then your program priority areas, that is important. And then profiling strategic partners that we feel are an added advantage to our interventions. It's very important. So you make a list of these partners. Now remember, after you've done that list, you are not just going to go and ask for partnership. You have to study the organization, study the partner. You never know when an organization has a financial or fraudulent issue where you are sitting. You only see the external, or maybe you see the work they do. So you need to study that before you onboard them in a project. Continuously making our processes clearer and clearer, the finance, the program, and the business development. And also making it clearer is not just to the partners, but also internally. I've come to learn that finances, if you don't work together with finance in your project, people in finance department, they might never understand what you are doing, and you will forever have a problem with execution of funding. So what we do is we want to capacitate finance together with all the rest of the project teams and make sure that they understand everything about you know, what we had to do at some point, we had to train them in costing activities, project activities. Now, these are people that have got no interest in the project. They just want to execute funding, but you can't execute if you don't understand. So if you have a strict financial manager or officer, they will not release funding easily. So, and the same with the program and the business development, you need to do casting of your vision of your project on a regular basis. One-on-one discussions with the directors, managers, officers to have a unified way of engaging in resource mobilization efforts. Now, these are the work of the project manager. Make sure, have one-on-ones, make sure people understand, make sure people are on track, make sure, you know, you'll be surprised that 6 months down the line, you'll discover that your project coordinator, which worked under the project or whatever, or team leader for 6 months, never understood the project. As the different countries or counties or regions resource envelope increases, it will be necessary to have in-country or local offices. What we are saying in the statement is, when you have a project in different counties, then it's important that with time, you now deploy your fundraisers or your fund development officers or those who write proposals to the local areas where the projects are running. You deploy them, you get an official employed there, and they're responsible for identifying need, writing the proposals, conducting the training, speaking to the partners on the ground, and so on. So you have to capacitate over time your work so well that when you expand, then you must have your strategy in place. So that in a nutshell is resource mobilization. In a nutshell, I just basically gave you that because we need to have that mindset. Why we are writing proposals? Why do we need funding? Sometimes we've done everything we could in a grant writing proposal, but it failed. Okay? In which instances do we fail in our proposal writing? Number one, not following instructions. Every grant proposal has got instructions. Most grant proposals or application has got a criteria, eligibility criteria that must be met, and a list of questions to answer. Do you know that a template is simply a list of questions that has been put there for you? And some templates doesn't have question marks, but it's just there for you to follow and to answer. Now, when you all wrote to me, I've asked you only to start with, I think with page 2, page B, so that you can fill out. And my keen interest was describing the project, what you are going to do, because I wanted to understand the line of reasoning. That's one of the first things I looked at. Now, some of you, the instruction was to fill out. Some of you filled out. Some of you didn't complete the activities, or you only wrote maybe 1 or 2 lines in the activities. Okay, so these are small things, but it's important when you are writing a formal proposal. And consider the list of questions to answer. It's literally a checklist that require a lot of information. If you look at a proposal or a request for proposal like that, it will be easy for you to work through the questions. What am I saying? You must first understand the instructions. You must understand the eligibility criteria to see whether you are eligible. It's easy. Some projects will tell you which countries are they giving money for, or others don't give countries, but they give the type of projects, agriculture, climate change, whatever, and so on. And then applications are denied when they did not follow instructions or show how they met the criteria or answer the questions, or make sure you follow. Okay, so make sure you follow the instructions, you meet the criteria, and you answer all the questions. That is why you can see this is not a one-man show, it's a team effort. Number two, why do project proposals fail? Because the budget does not match the narrative. Very important. That is why you need a team around the table. People, I think you've all experienced, if you've been writing on a thick document or you've been reading a thick document, your head is so full of all the thoughts and ideas, because when you read in, do you know that it is labor to concentrate? So the concentration is gone when you are done with that thick document. And if you are alone, for example, I think those of you who have done assignments before, you want to put the document down, go away, do some other things, and come back on another day, or maybe some few hours later. The same applies to this proposal. Many people, this is an example, your proposal includes staff doing something they have never done before, but your budget does not include a line item for the staff training. And that is what we call a mismatch. Doesn't go together. Already you see, no, there's something wrong with this proposal. If you say you will work with 250 new people from the community, but your budget covers items for 50 people, this is also a mismatch. So always review your budget to make sure amounts are consistent throughout the proposal and that it accurately reflects the scope of work you will do. If anything, get a finance guru on your team, somebody who's willing to first and foremost work pro bono. Give you a pro bono, a free service, just being on the team, so that you can have those specialized brains. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a PhD holder in finance, but it can be an officer that is just very meticulous with figures, and you need to get those people around the table. So when the budget does not match the narrative, that is also a failure. You will not get your funding. Number three, your target group is not clearly defined. Vague statements such as we will work with local populations that are not currently reached by other organizations. It's too general. You must tell us who's the local population. Maybe young people, number one. You must tell us in which age group, or maybe young people. Are they in the military? Are they students? Are they whatever? Specify. And we want to know maybe the age group. Then we also want to know from which county or counties are they that are not currently reached by other organizations. And that is also too general. How do you know that they are not reached by those organizations? So you will not get funding for that. Because remember, if I'm your donor, I want to see and understand, what am I funding here? So clearly define your target group based upon your demographics, your geographic area, and other factors that will explain the context, the specific needs, and the situation that they are in. Because if it is just funding them because they are not reached by other organizations, it doesn't sound like they have a problem. Show how your proposal addresses the target group's specific needs and overcome barriers or current challenges. So I think that is very easy to do if you are more than one person and you brainstorm. The most beautiful process in a proposal writing is the brainstorming process. If that brainstorming is ironed out well, then your write-up process should be much easier. And then funders fund solutions to problems, not activity. That's another mistake that people make. Donors fund solutions to problems. Now in Africa, we are so used to just singing problems, singing problems, singing problems. We need to sing solutions. Recognize that funders do not fund people or items. They fund solutions to problems. The problem you are solving should begin with a description of your project. Can you see there? The project description comes out again and should wrap up your project or program summary. In other words, in your project description, that is where I said very important, where the activities you describe, what exactly is it all about? What are you going to do? That is the interest of the donor. And that is why I asked you to fill out that component in the document. And it says, in summary, when you summarize, you remind the end reader again about what you want to be funded here. And it should be clear how each activity you describe in your proposal will address the problem you are trying to solve. The problem you are trying to solve. That is what the statement wants to say. It should be very clear how you want to solve the problem. Very, very clear. An example could be maybe if it's a lack of knowledge, maybe you want to provide training to so many people, then you describe the nature of the training that will help them to understand that, and the evaluation you will do, pre and post test evaluation after the training, and then how you are going to further help them to understand better, maybe give them an assignment in the area of that training or in an institution where they are going to work with the registers and fill out and do so many hours of service, maybe so many times per week, and then come back just to make sure. You know, if you give donors such detail, I always tell people, let me rather tell you it's enough information, it's clear, than you thinking I have provided enough information. It's very, very, very important to be able to describe. The reason why it's so important for us, if you are a person who was born speaking English, then maybe it's good for you. But we didn't grow up with English, and most of the donors want their proposals in English. So it's important for us to be into detail when we are writing. Then there's a lack of plan. Many times a clear plan is missing in the proposal that shows how you will use the funding to achieve the objectives and the results. We will use this funding to develop an online training, train disaster relief volunteers, and then they will be deployed when needed. That is not a proper plan. Okay, what is missing is how you will develop the online training, you see? And measure its effectiveness, how you will recruit the volunteers who will take the training, how you will verify they are ready to volunteer, and how you will deploy them when they are needed. Now, the first statement, we will use the funding to develop an online training, train disaster relief volunteers, and then they will be deployed when needed. It is it's like a person that communicate based upon assumption. I always tell people, you don't base your communication upon, you don't assume that you will be understood. You know, when it comes to writing, the best type of writing you can apply here is the way you write in research. In research, you describe what it is, and then you describe because it is like that, this is the opposite, you know. If you are saying, for example, you have a sample of 58 people, and out of the 58, so many people responded to the questionnaire, and then you must also write how many did not respond to the questionnaire. That is the type of writing that you want to put in here. So you break down your information. Always write with the end reader in mind. It's like in communication, you communicate for people to understand you, not for you to understand yourself as you convey a message. Always write with the end reader in mind. Put yourself in the shoes of the end reader. Do you know that donors want very simple, clear writing? That is what they want. They don't need Harvard English and Oxford English and American English. They are not interested in that. They are interested in clarity. So when there's no plan, when the plan is missing, especially in your narrative, because what we do is if we look at a technical proposal and there's a lot of structure and whatever frameworks that you have put in there and illustrative things you've put in there, then we go to the narrative to make sure that what you have given us in your structures, well, that you have drawn up for us, whether it speaks the same language in the narrative. And then we know that this person wants to say something, but doesn't come out clear. Then sometimes you'll find that the donor come back to you and ask you to explain A, B, and C. But sometimes if those two doesn't speak to each other at all, then it's an issue of they don't know what you want to say. So I'm going to end there for today. I'm going to summarize to you quickly the last part, why to proposal writing fail. It is when you do not follow instructions. Instructions are simple to follow. I always say that if everyone can follow a law or a rule or an instruction, the world will be a very good place. And then budget does not match the narrative. Remember, we said in your narrative, you're talking of 250 people in the community, but the budget covers 50 people. As if you are afraid to tell the donor that this is what you need. And then your target group is not clearly defined. People should be able to know whom are you. If somebody say whom exactly are you targeting, then you have to have an explanation ready. Funders fund solutions to problems, not activity. People love to ask funding for training, and they can't explain what is the end result. What do you want to do with the trained people? What happens to them? And then a lack of a plan. Your plan must also be spelled out. So these are some of the things we have told you, what needs to be done properly, what needs to be in place in order for us to now write the proposal. So for tonight, I'm going to end here. And we are going to rest and continue tomorrow. We are going into the proposal writing process. For tonight, I've covered donor funding. I've covered resource mobilization, the importance that we have a mindset of resource mobilization. One of the things that I did not mention or record down here is it's important for us to have a resource mobilization plan. Your plan will give you, first of all, the result of your market survey. You're going to do a market survey, and we call it a fundraising or donor market survey. You first do your market survey. Your mapping results will come also in your plan, your mapping. Remember, we said how you should categorize it. And then also you are going, which donors fund whom and what they spent over the years for these activities will also come in there. Then you will have projections over the next 5 or 10 years, what it will look like. Then you will have a sustainability plan. The results that come out of that will come in there. Then you will have a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis, very important. You must have that. For every proposal that you are writing, you can refer to SWOT analysis. Then you will have a PESTEL analysis as well. PESTEL analysis is more in the beginning to just give you an idea of the market, the political situation, the economy, everything, background. You need to have that. Then you are now looking at major donors, minor donors or major donors, and then your different types of funding that you can get. Different types of funding. If it's institutional partnership development, which is the fund development partners, then you will put that in your project, in your write-up, and then you will also have a component for fundraising. What are you going to fundraise for? Then you will have issues around the amounts will be there. You will have to cost whatever. For example, from corporate social investments, I want this, we want to make this amount for this year, 2024. From major donors, from the ordinary or the minor donors, and then from fundraising in itself, We want that in there from fund development, and then you have your budget for the year. Maybe you need something like 20 million US dollars for the year, and then you divide it, how much you get in from what. So that is what you are going to put in your resource mobilization plan. You will cost the plan, and it will be part of your major strategy as well. So I think I'm ending there. So are there any questions?